Many people are confused why a neurologist in the group of very prominent entrepreneurs from different parts of the world who are sitting here, and what does a doctor know about Kerala, what a doctor knows about entrepreneurship. To make things very simple, I am just a very humble neurologist. I'm a doctor. People say that we became entrepreneurs, but not by any capabilities, but it was just pure choice. I mean, there was a need of the hour, and we've been blessed to be working with some great people in the world, and I still continue and love this passion of working as a doctor. That keeps me going. Why I'm here? So, wherever we go, there is an identity that makes us really proud. And being an Indian, it's always nice to be addressed in that fashion. But there is something extra to it. And what is that? So we always talk about Kerala and why people do talk about Kerala. So there is something different that I wanted to speak today, and I hope you guys are going to agree, disagree with me, and I would want to explore that option. A very, very, very small state. We are less than 2% of the Indian square footage. We are about 3% of the population and 4% of the GDP. Why everybody wants to talk about our state? Good things, bad things, but let's only talk about the good things today. We've always been very fortunate to have tremendous leadership. I mean, be very apolitical and let's say that we have a great leadership. We always had the organizational power. We had better policies all the time. When you compare with the rest of our peers, we had very clean and correct policies. We had amazing capital. And the human resource, there is nothing more that I need to speak about. You look at people making fun of us, saying that if there is somebody selling tea in the moon, you will find somebody from Kerala. So this is how we've been organized. And with commitment, I think, we can raise our bar a little more. So we've always had a track record of performance. And the only thing that God has given us abundantly is the Mother Nature. So I just want to crack a joke here before I get to my next slide. I had a guest who came in from the Middle East, and normally the gardens in the Middle East are maintained by the municipality. So when he was traveling around Kerala, he said that one of the best things that I love about Kerala is your municipality is very, very, very efficient to manage the greenery. So we've always been creating social infrastructure rather than productive infrastructure. So I'll get back to that slide. Now, 4% of the Indian GDP, how does it matter? We've always been proud saying that, we are very small, but we've been productive. The good sides, the bad sides. So how do we weigh on this? I've been interacting the last 2 days here with people who are having an expertise on how Kerala has to be moving forward. So there's a lot of things that we have learned in this conference. And what I wanted to say that was, let's look at the size of these bigger states like Maharashtra, Uttar Pradesh, Tamil Nadu and Gujarat. Comparing to these states, which always were industrialized places, Kerala is still coming as number 10. Okay? So 1.8% of the land, but we have a 13% of the GDP growth. And that is something which I really want to be proud of. So there are few things which we have to dissect it again, and it may be good for people, it may be bad for people, but I don't know. Year on year, the remittances, I only have the figures till 2014, it's getting bigger and better. I was told that $19 billion come to Kerala in accounted money. The other things which we are not very clear on, but it is actually contributing a lot of factors to Kerala. 30% of our GDP has been contributed by the remittances that has been happening. Now, I want to take this presentation into different content and context, because this is how I want to take it. So we've had one of the oldest international port. So after Lothal, we had a port in Kerala called Calicut. The only thing that I hear about Calicut is when there is a container movement which has been stopped, it comes in the newspaper. So I don't hear anything constructive about anything that happens in one of the world's oldest port. We've always been international. If you look at the world maritime trade routes, Kerala has always been international. You go to Korea, you go to any part of the world, people always would love to talk about God's own country. Yes, we are God's own country. So the Kerala tourism industry has been growing progressively year on year. And I think factors like more involvement from public-private partnerships are going to make it really look much more better. But friends, why is Kerala unhappy? Why are we here today? Year on year, month on month, we meet together. We address certain issues together. How is that the productive power of people like you and me, we sit across the table and make Kerala look a little bit more better? I've always been a neurologist, and I was talking to a professor and I was just telling him, there is something which we all cannot tolerate, and that is imbalance. And why is there an imbalance in you? It's because of 3 hormones. I'm not going to go into a depth of it because it's not a medical conference, but let me make sure that these are the 3 hormones which makes your mood good for the day. So I think the general mood of people about my state is slightly bad. So why is this imbalance? Let's look at this. See, I was just making fun of people saying that we are in the moon, we have been doing extraordinary things. But yes, what we gave to the world and what we have done for our state, there is a lot of imbalance. This is what I would want to address. I mean, you look at the social infrastructure of a lot of countries, you look at the growth in many of the domains, we have had Indian contribution to it, and especially the people from Kerala. But what have we done for our state? There are bigger conferences. I don't want to take any names in it. Probably let's take 12 Keralites who are very rich in Kerala. I think putting their wealth together, I think it surpasses a GDP of a small country. And we still find it difficult to make things getting into the international level. So what is that is mattering us? We have money, we have everything, but what is that is not going right? I don't know whether you will agree with me. More than money, what is required is the intellect, the integrity, and the incessant desire to improve. If you measure, you will always improve. You have a measurement, you know your weight, you try to reduce it. You know your speed, you try to increase it. You know your balance sheet, you get it better. So I think a strict measurement of what is happening also needs to be in place. Kerala is just not given one president, but 2. I think Kerala has always been generous. It has given 1 president to India, and we have given 1 president to Singapore. So the 2nd president of Singapore was a Malayali, and his name is Devan Nair. I'm sure that everybody would know about him. I am trying to take you to a different route now. The pinnacle of success of every country, the biggest thing that a country could achieve is on space research. So I think of the 20 countries which have launch capabilities, there are only 6 countries which have full launch capabilities, and we are so proud to say that ISRO is one of the world's best launch capability organizations in the world. The rest being the European Space Agency, NASA, and I don't want to get into the details of it. But this does not allow me to make too much fun. You have somebody competing with us. If you look at their logo, they just copied it from one of the movies. So, gentlemen, the point is, the most important point that I want to make today is that you imagine a 12-storied building, about 40 meters in size. We've been able to send it to space. We can send about 51 foreign satellites to space, and people are just waiting for us to send them back to space again. So you can imagine a 12-storied building with how much of technology we would be sending them to the space. And these are lists of things that we have done by sending them outside. we're so proud and we're so happy that ISRO is one of the world's most respected space agencies for the moment, and we would continue striving for that. But what is the point? The point that I want to make is, if ISRO is the pinnacle of success for India, 4 out of the 7 chairmen are from this great soil that we are all in now. Isn't that something that we should be proud of? So this is where I come in. So Dr. Krishnasamy Kasturi Rangan, Dr. K. Radhakrishnan, Madhavan Nair sir, and M.G.K. Menon. These were the pioneers who have contributed to the growth of India, and we're so proud that we know that they're from Kerala. Yes, then in this land of hospitality and intellect, I was just told that something great about the consumer purchasing power parity of Kerala. 13.6% of the luxury car market in India has been done by the Keralites. 15% of the consumer durables and 20% of the gold. If that is the case, then why do we murder people on the road? I would rather want to call it as a murder on the road, because if you look at the number of people being culpably killed as well as the accidents on the road, it doesn't have any balance. I think it's sheer murder on the road, people dying on the road. Who is responsible for this? The point that I want to make is that we can help send India to space. We Keralites can help the Team India to send something to space. But the point is, I take about 5.5 hours to reach from Calicut to Kochi. That means, and that too on a treacherous road, you're never sure that you're going to be reaching on time. You don't know how much of time it's going to take. Friends, the call for infrastructure, I think it's about 40 years late. 40 years is too late. So what is the point that we have to think about? We have the best of planners, and planning is not rocket science. I think its completion is only by seeing it through, and that is what I call as rocket science. So few things which I'm not an economist, but I would just wanted to look at the Harrod-Domer model, the first 5-year plan. The first 5-year plan was based on few things. It warranted growth, it looked at the actual growth and the natural rate of growth. The total budget was about 2,000 crores. The target growth rate was 2.1%, and as usual, Indians, we achieved a growth rate about 3.6%. So we've always been growing. The incessant desire and the intellect and the Indianness in us, the humbleness in us, we always wanted to grow. Whenever we had pressures, we always grew. Whenever we had issues, we always overcome. That is why you see Keralites doing better when there is a period of stress. They come out of all the duress and then they start performing better. The model was great. I mean, the first 5-year plan was great, and subsequently what was happening is the problem. Getting 30% of my state GDP by remittances makes me happy, but it doesn't make me proud. So what has to be done to make us all feel proud about it? It shows that my most productive people had to leave the country to get the best out of themselves. So there is something which we need to seriously be thinking on, how to make this productive power back to the state. So now what do we do on? I mean, I'm not an economist again, so do we have to have an exogenous growth model? The point is, there is no point in just having the capital, but we need the help of technology to keep moving on. I think this is where we come in. The new generation is not only in terms of age, the new generation in terms of the attitude and the thinking process. Now, we need to be thinking more than the 5-year plan of a government. We need to keep thinking about one point, and that is Kerala and India has always been a land of opportunities. So there are a few things which you all know. We don't want to go into those aspects. Let's look at one of the most promising sectors that used to be there. I mean, we had a very stable rubber plantation businesses, and there are a lot of people in this forum who are the pioneers in doing in rubber businesses. They've all been diversifying. Now, I was told that we've been overtaken by Vietnam as well, if I stand corrected. The point is, 50% of the land still is going into agriculture, and we are one of the largest producers of natural rubber. 92% of India's rubber is still being produced in Kerala. But the industry is showing its lowest point in the last 20 years, with a fall of productivity by 13%. I think it's not about knowing formulas, it's not about having a Nobel laureate coming and telling us on how to do things. Let's put few things with a common sense. So, technology, human capital, and the workforce that is ready for thinking fresh out of the box, that is working together, is going to make a lot of sense to us. I want to take you back retrospectively to few things that India has achieved. Planning has never been new. In 1960, Le Corbusier came up with a plan of developing Chandigarh. People couldn't believe it. So, this is how the map of Chandigarh looked in 1960, in a small piece of paper. And now we know that planning a livable city is not rocket science. So, if we could do it in 1960, and we still believe that Chandigarh is one of the best planned cities in India, why can't we do it in 2020? Chandigarh, 114 square kilometers, and it brings in about US dollars 4.3 billion. It's always been about infrastructure. If we don't have infrastructure, we don't have a better thinking. We don't have a better outlook. People always say that infrastructure is access, communication, power, water, and sewage. That's what is infrastructure. But for me, I'm like an external auditor coming into Kerala to do the internal audit of Kerala. So what I feel is, I've always lived in an American-European infrastructure, but with an Indian mindset. We've always lived like an Indian wherever we go. Always lived like a Keralite wherever we go in. So we always would want those facilities to be in India. And why not in India? Why not in Kerala? So I always wanted to add healthcare and education in the infrastructure perspective of it. That is what makes a country look more agile, and somebody who can make it modular is going to have a lot of success. I just wanted to talk about few slides, a very brief thing about what Kerala is and how we should look for some changes in the sector. Now, Kerala's road density is definitely high. I mean, when you compare with the peer states, the state density is about 417 kilometers every 100 square kilometer. And I think the national average is 100 per 100 square kilometer, but it has changed a little bit now. I've not changed on the slides. But what is the point that I'm trying to make? It's not about the density of the roads, but most of the roads, we have 8 national highways passing through, about 1,500 kilometers, but all of which is now progressively being widened to 2 or 4 lanes. This is one of the major problems. Most of our roads, we have roads as density, but the density doesn't matter. It needs to be widened. It needs to be enlarged to get into the national highway standards. Again, the doctor in me saying that I am sick of treating man-made disasters. Every day in the newspaper, you see people dying out of accidents. We don't see too much of culpable homicides now when compared to the ratio of the deaths that is happening on the roads. As if crime wasn't enough. So till 2016, till May, if you compare the numbers of the accidents to the murder, I think, we as a state, our numbers are really, really being alarming. And these are reasons for us to be really worried about. I'm not sadistic, but I need to say some facts today. When I hire some of the best nurses from Kerala to my hospitals, it's not a good feeling. My heart bleeds to know that this is how we are the best, because they work for the blood of my state, and that is what is keeping them really active in their profession. The Kerala PWD roads, 90% of it is single or intermediate lane. So this also needs to have a lot of changes that is happening. So to summarize, I think roads are like arteries of life for an economy. I think you know about an artery. Artery is the one which supplies blood to the heart. And if there is a block in one of the arteries to the heart, that is when you develop a heart attack. No doubt, I think my state is getting a heart attack almost every day. So this is something which we need to address, and there are been things that is happening, but it needs to get more and more better. So coming in the infrastructure, let's talk about a very, very, very safe sector. So there is no accidents as compared to the thing that is happening in the roadways or things like that. Few interesting facts. Airport Authority of India is a 12,000 crore company, and it is showing year on year there is 30% growth in its net profit. Where did we miss this chance of being the world's largest aviation base? If you look at history, about 30 years ago, India used to be one of the most fly-out destinations. People used to travel. But these opportunities were taken up by the Middle East airlines only to the fact that we couldn't upgrade our government airline businesses. I think there is an opportunity for us to get it back to us. And this is where people like you and me, we need to get to the act. So it's going to be the third largest aviation market in 2020. Travel and tourism is going to contribute about 300 billion of GDP by 2026. And business and leisure growth. I've heard previous speakers speaking about the rate of growth of tourism that could happen in India and in general Kerala. Every tourism aspect that works in India always talks about a visit to Kerala. And these are sectors which we need to look at in detail. Now, as I said, India can become the world's third largest aviation market. Liberalized in 1994, the airline sector is showing an amazing growth, and domestic passenger growth is, from 2016, it's showing a 4-time increase in growth. Now, again, let me remind you that with 2% of the square feetage of India, we have an amazing rate of growth. We bring in 77 billion. Chandigarh still brings 4 billion. Why can't we plan something better than Chandigarh? Let's talk about the airports of the country. The 6 major airports in the country. I don't see a great successful model which has been talked about by people, not in the 6 best airports in the country. Is there something really wrong? We only talk about Delhi, Mumbai, Bangalore, Chennai, Hyderabad and Calcutta. Why are we not talking about Cochin? The foreign tourist arrival is getting better and better. Year on year, month on month, the number of passengers coming into Cochin is getting better. What is that is not doing well? I just want to take a moment out of the slide, and I'm sure that you would have heard of a company called Etihad Airways, and you are sure that you have heard of a company called Emirates Airlines. Few years ago, before Etihad decided to buy Jet Airways, the Indian percentage of tickets of Etihad was just 2%, and 20% of the ticket sales of Emirates was constituted by Indians. Now, one fine day, Emirates decided to buy Jet Airlines. Post-buying, the contribution of Indian passengers to them, it grew to 20%. And Emirates, it became 13%. So collectively from 22%, they grew to 33%. So I think there is a synergy that needs to build up in getting Kerala to the next level. So there has been a lot of new initiatives by the government in bringing the regional connectivity network and things like that. So I think we need to start getting into this act of making the runways better in many of the airports that are going to be coming in, Trivandrum, Cochin, and then only we will be able to talk about a state airline ever up and running. I think we need to have the runways which are suitable for the crafts. Let's not be too jubilant and euphoric about whatever we do. So I don't have a pointer here, but I don't know whether you're able to see this. If you look at the percentage change in the aircraft movement when you compare it with 2014 to 2015 and year on year, I think there are better performing airports than us. Chandigarh performs better than Cochin Airport, but to a selective amount of coverage and a selective amount of passengers. So we need to do a lot of introspection. We need to do a lot of study, and we need to correct ourselves in whether our strategies are working in the right place or not. Is this more visible now? Yeah. So what is the point of having all this purchase power parity? I again told you 13.6% of the Indian luxury car market, 15% of the consumer durables, 20% of the gold consumption. What is really wrong? This is somewhere taking me to a story about the greatest warrior of all times, Napoleon. Napoleon was so aggressive that whenever he decided to conquer a country, the whole bunch of army was with him so that he could conquer wherever he wanted. One fine day, he decided to conquer Russia. So he decided to move with an army of 400,000 people, and he started from Europe on the way to Russia. So the Russians were very scared, so that they were very sure that they're going to lose this war, and they still anticipated Napoleon on its way. The 400,000 people, once they reached Russia, it only became 100,000. So he lost every 50 kilometers, he lost a horse. He had the best of ammunition, he had the best of strategy, he had the best of people. Once he reached Russia, the Russians burned all the food and they ran away. And that also caused another 50,000 to die. The only small thing that he missed during that calculation was he didn't have the winter shoes for the horses. So I think this is where we are also going wrong. We are making mistakes in the small things that needs to be looked into in a very big detail. It's always been infrastructure. So what about shipping as a solution? So I've always been reminded that we have always been international. You look at Korea, we had trade relations with China, we had different parts of the world. But what's happening to our shipping industry? What's not so right about the logistic businesses that we do? Dionysius Aegeus, he's somebody who wrote about the people of the Dow. So people from Kerala was always known to the outsiders as the people of the Dow. So we've been called as the people of the Dow because he's a master of the wood, he cuts, and is a master of the sea. So what's happening to us? We are no longer the masters of the sea. If you look at the trade routes, again, we have a great maritime map that has been international since quite some time. 590 kilometers, the coastal line, 17 intermediate and non-major ports, and our pride, the Cochin port. Let's look at the container traffic movement that happens in the cargo handled and the vessel traffic which happens here. So the percentage increase is still high, but is that what is the real growth? We are supposed to get traffic from Coimbatore to different parts of the world, India becoming one taxed, one nation. Why is the rate of growth not as anticipated by the people that has been knowing? I think it's very clear the world won't wait for us, and it doesn't wait for anybody. It's not only about the international cargo, it's also about the coastal traffic. I was mentioning to you, it takes me about 6 hours for me to reach from Calicut to Cochin, and that too on a treacherous road. I'm not sure whether I'll be reaching on time. So is there alternative ways of transportation that we could think about? The Sagarmala project is on, but we don't see anything that aggressive coming from the Kerala side on how this needs to be getting in. The short distance road traffic between the different parts of the Kerala's coastal districts, can it be done through shipping? Will that help us in cutting down our timings to make it more effective, cheaper? Can cruise traffic, which is only selectively being done in different parts of the state, can it be done aggressively? So these are few things which we need to be really looking at. Till the Sagarmala project takes shape, there is a lot of contribution as we can do to the state. There is an urgent need for the country to think about a different model of coastal movement of cargo. Let's look at the way things are being on the road. There are major mishaps happening because there's a lot of transportation of cargo which is happening on the road. And I think this is one of the major reasons why our roads are so chalked. And this is why I say that our roads, we have accidents which are similar to heart attacks. We've been affected by a lot of things. I mean, so the reason for me, people saying that we're badly affected by GST, we've been badly affected by demonetization. Friends, I think we are going to be affected more. Suppose we get a stroke, we get a heart attack, we still come back. I think these are the things that we need to be thinking about, getting back to action. I think we need to start thinking in this way. Otherwise, we'll continue to drown turbines on our highway. And these are not things which you and me would want to happen, want to see it happen, because these are painstakingly done, and a small mistake by one of the infrastructure issues cannot have these turbines going down our highways. So we need to really think about infrastructure, and we also need to look about the improvements that can happen in different sides of the Kerala divertible coastal cargo that needs to be effectively addressed. So these are things which are things for the classification and how things needs to be done. My point was, let's think about infrastructure. Infrastructure is all in the game. We've seen how Hong Kong is developed. We've seen how Israel is developed. We've seen multiple countries which have developed. The point that I wanted to make today is that we've been giving too much to the world. As a Keralite, as an Indian, we've been contributing too much for the economy of a lot of countries. But what have we done to our mother state? Yes, for the last decade, we have seen investments from people coming from outside. But now, it's the productive power that is going to make a lot of difference. So people keep asking me, you've been giving lectures, but you don't do anything here. So the answer to it is that there is a model which works in Kerala. There is a model which is totally different. The model that works in Kerala doesn't work anywhere in India. People keep asking me, you've developed good institutions. So the reason for me telling you this is because there are people who have gone to outside Kerala because there was an opportunity. We went and we created an opportunity there so that people could come and work with us. Now we need to come back. What do we need to come back for? I, as a doctor, as an entrepreneur, don't want to start a hospital in Kerala, and that leaves a lot of people in dismay. Why is that? It's not the money. The money is not the issue. In Kerala, if I start a hospital, I need to be able to reduce the waiting time in Kerala, which I will not be able to for the next 5 years. But things are getting better. Now you have a lot of investments coming in different sides. Like, what is my interest would be in the primary infrastructural businesses which we are getting into. We've been talking to the government on how we could make the electronic medical record and the claims process management of a certain insurance which has to be given to the poor people. And I think that specific focus to Kerala will really make Kerala's healthcare even look better, which is better when you compare it with the rest of the state. The only point that I wanted to make again is thank you for your pleasant listening, and I really want to thank you for giving me this opportunity. Rajesh was very particular that I need to be stopping before time so that, we've started a little late. I don't know how much of help it did for my presentations to you, but the bottom line is Kerala and India is the world's largest land of opportunity. Let's all sit together, let's all decide together. This is the place where we need to really focus now on. Thank you, gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much.